Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lewis, and welcome back to the channel. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for continuing this journey with me, this musical odyssey. I do appreciate you coming back to see me, and hopefully we can have a bit of fun today. Meanwhile, I discuss a few more albums with you. Again, we're going to be continuing the conversation about where I believe the best place for the beginner in jazz to start. Now, I've once again pulled 5 albums from my shelves, and this is just to give you an overall flavour of the broad church, which is jazz. Now, I've tried to keep to the methodology of the first two episodes in this collection, and that is to have the albums represent certain categories. So just in case you don't know, I'll refresh your memory or just give you knowledge of what I'm intending to do. The first category will be under blues and jazz vocal. The second is going to be the West Coast sound, which includes lounge and exotica. The third is going to be the Latin and Brazilian jazz side of things, which include Bossa Nova. The fourth is going to be contemporary jazz, and just for argument's sake, I've started this at 1980 to the present day. And fifth, and by no means least, what I would describe as mid-tier or consensus jazz. And what I mean by that is artists and performers who I believe are truly talented. It's just that they're not household names. They're not in the same league as far as the consensus is concerned as a Mingus, a Coltrane, a Davis. But they are fantastic musicians in their own right, and hopefully by me exposing them to you, you'll think the same, and you'll basically arrange the pantheon of artists in your head, in whichever way you want to, and hopefully they'll be included in it. After all, this is a journey about what you like. So yeah, don't be overruled or don't necessarily go by what convention says. Choose for yourself. So this is just to give you an idea of what's out there. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the jazz and blues vocal side of things. And you'll find today that I've got a number of albums which I have a particular fondness for. So the first one of these albums is Helen Humes' Sneaking Around. Now it's quite a battered copy, as you can see, but don't let that distract you. Yeah, this is a fantastic album. Um, this is all about character and personality, in my opinion. This is an album which is full of modesty, joy, and feeling. It's quite a jumping and sprightly affair, so it may not be to everyone's taste, but certainly give it a go. See what you think and take it from there. I would say from the outset that she has a particular vocal style and inflection. She sings with a more croaky, nasally. It's not affectation, that would be the wrong word, but that's the way it's presented. Now, don't let this put you off by any means. It's beautiful in and of itself. And after all, why would we want all our artists to sing in exactly the same way? That truly would be boring. So this is again partly to highlight to you how different singers are from each other, and hopefully you'll get a really good keen sense of that once you've heard this particular album. Now, one of the things I would strongly say about this album is that I get the feeling that this particular lady has a, I don't know this as a fact, but her career must have been, well, I hope it's something like the Susan Boyle story. And what I mean by that is I get the impression that she had, lived a life, worked in factories and so forth. She wasn't always a singer. There is a level of sincerity here which makes me believe that, unlike some singers, she's truly grateful for the opportunity to sing before you. That's where her pleasure is, in having the opportunity to sing for the general public. And not all musicians are like that. Some of them have, this is me looking from the outside in. Some have a more arrogant attitude that, yeah, I've done the work. I've learnt this instrument inside and out, and you should be grateful to see me perform. Whereas I get the totally opposite impression with Miss Hume, that she's truly grateful that you're here to see her and listen to her performances. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Of the 8 tracks on here, at least 6 are really, really good. I'm going to highlight a few of the tracks for you. Exactly Like You, Tribute to Jimmy Russian, and St. Louis Blue. Now, St. Louis Blue is one that I'm going to particularly, highlight to you for the following reason. Maybe about 1 minute and 30 into the track, there is a tempo change, and the person responsible for that is the drummer on this album, and Mr. Ed Thighpen, and I'll spell that for you. That's Thighpen. He is a drummer of some repute. He's up there in terms of the world of jazz drumming. He's one of the names. He's worked with everybody. I was surprised to learn that he was on this album. That's my fault for not reading the sleeve notes. And it doesn't surprise me. There is some talent on here, and this gentleman, when he does do his tempo change, it really is an outstanding thing to see. So if you do see this, do consider it. I bought it between £6 and £8 for this particular album. Partly I think that price is to do with the state of the outside cover, but the actual vinyl itself is in very good condition, so I was really happy in purchasing it. So yeah, well done me. I'm going to pat myself on the back. My second album today, again, is one of my favourites of all time in terms of what's in my personal collection, and that's an album by a Mr. Paul Horn, and the album is called Profile of a Jazz Singer. Yes, this gentleman really knows his onions. He's multi-talented on wind instruments, so that includes the saxophone, the clarinet, and the flute in particular. Now, this album, I would say, and I'm not exaggerating, should be given the same reverence as Dave Brubeck's Time Out. It's that good. They're not interchangeable as such, but that's the nearest equivalent I can think of, certainly from my particular collection of jazz albums. This is a tour de force. I'm almost jealous that when you do come to listen to this for the first time, if you haven't heard it before, that you're actually going to have that experience. As soon as I bought it and listened to it throughout, I knew this was for me, and I'm going to try and find more by this gentleman. Yeah, if your knowledge of jazz flute basically revolves around the comedic exploits of the character Ron Burgundy in the film Anchorman, then you'll realise that that's all a bit of a nonsense, and this is the real deal. This is a thing of beauty. Yeah, I bought this for maybe about £12, something like that, and it was an absolute steal. I would have been quite happy at spending twice that amount to get this album. It is that good. I don't think there's a filler track on here, to be quite honest, and that's partially what I like about the buying experience as well, when you can find an album which from beginning to end is of fantastic quality. Compositions on here are out of this world. Please do give it a go. The tracks that I would highlight from this album would be Count Your Change, Lazy Afternoon, and Fun Time. So if you do see it, this is a repress version. If you do see it, and definitely under £20. Just get it. It's a no-brainer. It's that good. My third album is from the from the Latin and Brazilian side of jazz. And again, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. Tamba Trio. I think it's the album's called Tempo. Just look at that album cover. I'd love to have that as a poster and have it framed. So yeah, that's just one aspect of it. This is the preeminent experimental bossa nova jazz ensemble. This is a fantastic piece of work. I'm almost lost for words on how good this is. And again, just like the Paul Horn, I would say I'm almost jealous if you've never heard this before and you're going to get the opportunity to hear it for the first time. Yeah, it's life changing. That's how good it is. Yeah, each member of the trio is truly talented, and you really do get very good opportunities to hear how skillful each member is. But I will pull out for particular attention is the band's pianist and arranger, a Mr. Louis Esser, for his contribution. He's a fantastic performer, and he really does have an ear for sound and creativity and imagination, and he just puts it all together to give you a distinct sound, which is out of this world. Yeah, there's a couple of vocal tracks on this particular one, and you will get examples of his arranging skill just from the dexterity the dexterity of the way he's put together the vocal arrangements are something to behold. It really is a lush piece of work. So yeah, if you do see this, get it. I bought it for roughly between £16 and £20. Very good price for it. It's on 180 grams virgin vinyl. So again, the sound reproduction is amazing on this particular one. Now, those who are familiar to the channel know that I have a habit of butchering the Portuguese language, and I'm not going to fail you this time. I'm going to do the same thing. The three tracks to look out for are Yansa, O Amor Empal, and Nuvius. I've probably pronounced them more horribly, so do forgive me. Hopefully by me praising this album, you're going to let my terrible pronunciation of Portuguese slide. So yeah, if you see this album, please get it. You're in for an absolute treat. My fourth album today is from the contemporary jazz part of my collection. For those who don't know, I'm still mulling over modern performers and what I think about them. It's an ongoing debate within my mind. Yeah, this is a similar thing. Today's contribution to the collection of 5 albums. I'm still processing this one. This is Ruby Rushton's Trudy's song. It's counted as an LP, 6 tracks on here. I actually count it as an EP. I believe 2 of the 6 are kind of more fillers. They last maybe 1 minute 30, 2 of the tracks, so they don't really get going. This is still trying to work this one out, because although I don't look like it, and hopefully you'll agree, I was around in the late 90s, early noughties, and there was a particular record label called Talking Loud, and there was a particular jazz subsection or subculture called the acid jazz scene. Now, this particular album is very reminiscent of the music which came out at that time. So yeah, I'm still processing this because it's a familiar sound to me. Hopefully you, as the the beginner in jazz haven't heard that or not so familiar with that era in jazz music. Um, so it might resonate with you more than it has with me. Again, that's part of what my problem is with it, is familiarity, but that's not to take away from the actual musicians themselves, who are very good. I would point out, for special attention, a Mr. J. Dean Mahmood, and Mr. F. Island on percussion and bass, respectively, who really stand out from the rest of the group, in my opinion, in terms of their execution of the compositions. Um, you might also want to know, and it might influence your buying. Um, uh, the artist known as Tenderlonius appears on this album throughout. He's one of the people who put this album together, so he's a performer plus producer on this particular album. So it's a sound that I'm familiar with. I'm still trying to work it out. Please note that all the albums I've shown you, I've bought with my own money. So even when there's hesitations or I'm still mulling them over, um, I still pulled the trigger on them. So these were not freebies that I can just discard. Um, it just makes me think about my buying habits, why I bought it, the situation behind it. But yeah, the tracks to look out for are Moonlight Woman and Where Are You Now. I would say they're the two outstanding tracks on this EP. I paid probably about £14 for this. I'd say that's about the right mark. If it was brought down to about, considering it's really an EP, so between £10 and £12, I think, is a fair price for this particular one. But yes, it harkens back to the, in particular, Talking Loud labels sound. But that's not to say that that's a bad sound. It's just something I'm familiar with. So I'm slightly biased, or I'm just being a crotchety old man in the sense of I've kind of heard it before, but that doesn't mean it's not without its merit, and certainly you may enjoy it. So that's partly why I've presented it to you today. The last album today is an absolute treat. This is by a gentleman called Georges Edouard Nouel, and his album Chodo. Now, this particular one, um, for want of a better phrase, but I do kind of think that this kind of explains it. It's high art in a digestible form. This particular album, it's jazz, and there are elements of jazz fusion in here as well. Um, Four of these 7 tracks are original compositions by Mr. Newell, and I believe they're the better tracks on this particular album, the ones which are more complex and in the jazz genre really stand out on this particular album. The execution by not only Mr. Newell himself but his band is absolutely first rate. It's yeah, there's been 3 or 4 albums today which are really high standard. This one is up with them in terms of, this is compositions and sheer talent combined to make a fantastic album. So I think I paid between £16 and £20 for this. I've never looked back. Yeah, this is a work of, I'm not saying genius, but it's a work of a considerable talent. It's ahead of its time, this particular one. Um, it's got a kind of fresh, modern-ish sound, and it's littered with amusing breaks. And again, I've pointed this out in Miss Humes' album. This is material or snippets of music which you know that if hip hop artists knew about it, they certainly would use it, and there's quite a few on this particular album. Um, yeah, it's got exquisite piano work. Yeah, there's not. I'm just like overawed by how good this is as a piece of work, to be quite honest. It's one which the 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 experienced jazz collector and the newbie can get equal pleasure from for completely different reasons. So it's complex yet simple at the same time. Works on more than one level. So, and that's what makes it interesting. That's part of the journey through jazz and what you will come to like, and developing your taste in the genre, what you feel is worth or what you consider is of merit. The tracks that I would recommend from this album are Chanda Nagor, Solingen, and the title track Chodo. Yeah, if you do see it, um, yeah, for a reasonable price, around the £20 mark, I would say get it. Certainly, as with all of these albums, I would listen to the tracks that I've highlighted to see that, or just to make sure you before purchasing that it is something that's going to fit in with your collection and what you consider to be of merit. But yeah, I really enjoy this one. So those are my 5 albums for today. Um, I'd like to thank you at this point for sticking with me and listening to my ramblings, my musings. I hope they were of some use to you. If you've enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing. And feel free to comment down below. Um, yes, only for me to say I hope I see you in the next episode, and I'd like to thank you once again for your time. Thank you very much. Bye bye.